Cha Arjuna Vacha
अर्जुनोवाच
Atha Kena Prayuktoyam
अथा केन प्रयुक्तोऽयम्
Papam Charati Purusha
पापं चरति पुरुषः
Anichan Abhivashneya
अनिच्छन्नपि वाष्णेय
Baladivani Yojitaha.
बलात् बलद्गीवानियोजिता.
So this is a very important shloka. Is a question which Arjuna is asking. So let's read. Anyone wants to volunteer for reading?
Volunteer.
Yes, please.
Arjuna asked, O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? A living entity, as part and parcel of the Supreme, is originally spiritual, pure, and free from all material contaminations. Therefore, by nature, he is not subject to the sins of the material world. But when he is in contact with the material nature, he acts in many sinful ways without hesitation and sometimes even against his will. As such, Arjuna's question to Krishna is very sanguine as to the perverted nature of the living entities. Although the living entity sometimes does not want to act in sin, he is still forced to act. Sinful actions are not, however, impelled by the supersoul within, but are due to another cause, as the Lord explains in the next verse. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for reading. Okay, so Arjuna is asking this question, which many of us may have come across. Sometimes during our life, we come across situations where our will is different, but our action actually is a little different. Has anybody come across something like that? That I'm not willing to do it, but still I land up doing it.
Yes, Prabhuji.
This is a very, very important aspect to see what Arjuna's predicament is and how Krishna is encouraging him to conduct himself. So Arjuna is asking that what is that force which is causing? And as if something is just forcing us to do it. Prabhupada in the purport says that the nature of living entity is spiritual, pure. But because of contact of the material nature, this pure spiritual being has actually got conditioned material impurities. And because of these impurities, one lands up conducting himself or herself in a way in which one should not and in which one doesn't want to conduct. And what is the real reason? Krishna will tell the answer in the uh, next shloka. But it is a very valid and appropriate question. So I'll go to the next shloka. Anybody wants to say anything pertaining to this particular shloka? How many of you feel this is pertinent question and you would like to know the answer?
I do because it's very common situation where you are living in an uncertain state of mind.
Yeah. So let's see. So Krishna speaks in 37th shloka. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Shri Bhagavan Vacha Kam Esha Krodh Esha Kam Esha Krodh Esha Rajo Guna Samodbhava Rajo Guna
रघुगुणसमुद्भवा
Mahashano Mahapapma Mahashano
महाशनो महापाप्मा
Vidhi Enam Iha Vairinam.
विधियेनम् इह वैरिणम्.
Any volunteers who would like to read the translation and purport? Okay, I can read. Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is lust only, Arjun, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath. and which is the all devouring sinful enemy of this world. Purport. When a living entity comes in contact with material creation, his eternal love for Krishna is transformed into lust. In association with the modes of passion, or in other words, the sense of love of God becomes transformed into lust. As milk in contact with sour tamarind is transformed into yogurt. Then again, when lust is unsatisfied, it turns into wrath. Wrath is transformed into illusion, and illusion continues the material existence. Therefore, lust is the greatest enemy of the living entity, and it is lust only which induces the pure living entity to remain entangled in the material world. Wrath is the manifestation of mode of ignorance. These modes exhibit themselves as wrath and other corollaries. If therefore the mode of passion, instead of being degraded into mode of ignorance, is elevated to the mode of goodness by the prescribed method of living and acting, then one can be saved from the degradation of wrath by spiritual attachment. The Supreme Personality of Godhead expanded himself into many for his ever increasing spiritual bliss, and the living entities are parts and parcels of spiritual bliss. They also have partial independence, but by misuse of their independence, when the service attitude is transformed into the propensity of sense enjoyment, they come under the sway of lust. This material creation is created by the Lord to give facility to the conditioned souls to fulfill these lustful propensities. And when completely baffled by prolonged lustful activities, the living entities begin to inquire about their real position. This inquiry is beginning of Vedanta Sutras, wherein it is said, Athato Brahma Jigyasa. One should inquire into the Spirit Supreme. And the Supreme is defined in the Srimad Bhagavatam as Janmadyasya Atonvayaditaratas Cha, or the origin of everything is the Supreme Brahman. Therefore, the origin of lust is also in the Supreme. If therefore lust is transformed into love for the Supreme, or transformed into Krishna consciousness, or in other words, desiring everything for Krishna, then both lust and wrath can be spiritualized. Hanuman, the great servitor of Lord Ram, exhibited his wrath by burning the golden city of Ravan. By doing so, he became the greatest devotee of the Lord. Here also in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord induces Arjun to engage his wrath upon his enemies for the satisfaction of Lord. Therefore, lust and wrath, when they are employed in Krishna consciousness, become our friends instead of our enemies. Okay, Hare Krishna. So here in the response to Arjuna's question, Krishna is saying, Kam Esha. Kam hi hai wo. Kam is, it is lust, which means unfulfilled desires to enjoy in the material world. So these desires actually make our spiritual consciousness covered. So this covering is, this will come in the future shloka, is actually very thick in most living entities. Relatively speaking, it is less thick in human life. So human life, there is still a chance to overcome this covering of lust. But in all the other living entities, it is actually very, very thick. Cannot be actually overcome. So we'll discuss that later. But here in this particular purport, Prabhupada is explaining that how the living entity's original nature is to be spiritual, is to actually have loving relationships with the Lord. But because one has, by the free will given to us, one has chosen to enjoy separate from the Lord, that propensity is come as lust and is keeping us entangled here. How entangled? By the desires. All the desires which we may have, which are separate from the spiritual desires, which are separate from the Lord, those desires actually tie us. Just like you may have noticed, there is an anchor in a ship or in a boat. They use an anchor or a rope to tie it so that the boat or the ship stays where they are and don't move around anywhere else. So when that particular anchor is holding the boat or the ship at a particular place, they cannot move around too much. But as soon as they want to move, they release the anchor or they untie the anchor or untie the rope, and then they are able to move where they want to go. Similarly, this lust is the anchor which has anchored us to the material world, and it is not letting us enjoy with loving relationship with the Lord. That is the purpose of um, shastras, spiritual beings, spiritual master, to actually help us revive our dormant spiritual consciousness. Just like Hanuman, he had the ability to do wonderful things, but he had forgotten. He did not remember. But when Jamban told him, hey, you could do so much, just go and jump and go to Lanka and come back. So then he remembered, okay, yes, I can do that. Similarly, the spiritual master, the mentors, the guide, the scriptures, they are meant to point us that, hey, we have unlimited capabilities. We are not limited by this material body or this material nature. We are spiritual. We are part and parcel of Lord. We do not have to just limit ourselves to our material needs, but expand ourselves to actually do wonderful spiritual service to the Lord and revive our spiritual relationship with the Lord. And this can be done when we have a service attitude. One has to have a service attitude towards the Lord and devotees, by which one will be able to revive the his dormant nature and will able to advance spiritually. So the advancement will cause the lustful propensities actually to get transformed. From lust, it will transform to love for the Lord. And Prabhupada is mentioning here in the Vedanta Sutras. So the Vedas are all these different books which we have talked about in the past. There are the four Vedas, we have the 18 Mahapuranas, we have 108 Upanishads, we have Itihasas, which are the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. So these are the Vedic literatures. And to compile these Vedic literatures in sutra form. Sutra means a huge amount of topic covered under one heading. Just one line includes so much. So that is a sutra, like just a one line which has so much items which can be unpacked, but they are packed in just one sutra or one line. So Vedanta Sutras is that compilation which is the conclusion of all the Vedic literature. So in the Vedanta Sutra, one of the sutra is Athato Brahma Jigyasa, which means that when one starts developing a curiosity to know the spiritual life, the spiritual topics, that is when the human life actually begins. Otherwise, we have been in this world for so long. If we have been given a human life, but we are not inquiring about the absolute, then we are not actually making the most of this body, and our human life is not even started. But when we start inquiring spiritually, that's when it actually has started. So every living entity is spiritual or Brahman, and the Supreme Lord is Para Brahman. He is the uh, one ultimate source actually. So, what are the examples of transforming calm into prema or lust into love? The example is Hanumanji. Hanumanji had only one desire, to serve Lord Ram. And when he was having anger, he used it in service of Lord Ram. So he was angry with Ravan and he burned the whole Lanka, did service to Lord Ram. Similarly, Arjun was angry. He was encouraged to being used his anger for fighting for the right cause, for protection of dharma. So here we see that Prabhupada has mentioned about wrath, lust and wrath. So here it is mentioned that how wrath means that kind of anger which is so severe and intense that one can't think what is right for me and what is wrong for me, and one just go around destroying things. That is wrath. And wrath is in the mode of ignorance. When it actually becomes spiritualized, it is not in the mode of ignorance now. Now it's spiritual. How will it become spiritualized? By using that anger in the service of Lord, just like Lord Hanuman did. So, passion and ignorance. Passion, lust is in the mode of passion. So here there is there is a whole explanation. Love for God. So we have dormant love for God, but because of these material desires, it is actually transformed into lust, which is material passion and desire to enjoy separate from the Lord. And this transforms into wrath, and that leads to illusion. Illusion means one doesn't know what is right and wrong, and that will make us continue in the material world. So the first point of transformation from love to lust, that is the first step that has to be acted upon at the very beginning. When lust is there, which means desire to enjoy separate from the Lord is there, that desire, if we are able to somehow or the other spiritualize and transform it to love, then it will not lead to wrath, it will not lead to illusion, it will not cause those problems. So Krishna will explain all this in subsequent shlokas. Here, Krishna has just answered Arjun's question that Kam Esha Krodh Esha Rajoguna Samudbha. That it's lust only, Arjun, which is born because of mode of passion. And this transforms into wrath, which is in the mode of ignorance. And this is all devouring sinful enemy of this world. So this will actually destroy ourselves and others. So this is a very, very dangerous situation to be in. But we are all on this situation, and we are having dangerous challenges in front of us if we don't take it seriously. If we are able to take it seriously, if we are able to get in touch with Bhagavad Gita, reading, practicing, or trying to practice, that is actually the beginning of our spiritual life. That is actually very good that we have started. That is when our human life has actually started. Athato Brahma Jigyasa. Okay, so this is what I can share from this shloka. Anybody would like to ask any questions or bring up any discussion points?
Just a comment. This is really very meaningful because, in nutshell, a negative emotion can be transformed into a positivity once you surrender it in the name of God and start asking where I am in terms of my emotions. That's what I got out of it.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Thank you much for sharing. Okay. So we'll go to the next shloka. So Krishna is continuing here. धूमेन व्रियते वानिर् धूमेन व्रियते वानिर् यथा दर्शो मलेन च यथा दर्शो मलेन
Radha-shamalena cha
यथोल्बेनावृतो गर्भस्
yatho
तथा तेनेदमावृतम् तथा
तथा तेनेदमावृतम्.
Translation. As fire is covered by smoke, as mirror is covered by dust, or as the embryo is covered by womb, the living entity is similarly covered by different degrees of this lust. Okay, so Krishna is now explaining what is this lust, what is this calm. So Krishna is explaining that three examples he's giving. What are the three examples? Who can tell? Anybody?
Smoke, dust, and womb.
Yes. So first is fire covered by smoke. So sometimes you'll see fire coming, but then there'll be a lot of smoke also, right? So you'll see smoke is there, but behind the smoke there is fire. If there's an old mirror, then dust settles on it. And after some time, that dust is quite significant there. And if we see the child during pregnancy is within the womb, the embryo. So embryo within the womb is there. Now these are three examples Krishna is giving, and this is actually he's comparing it with different degrees to which the lust is covering the living entity. So in purport, Prabhupada makes it more clear for us. Anybody available for reading the purport?
If no one reads, I can read.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. There are three degrees of covering of the living entity by which his pure consciousness is obscured. This covering is but lust under different manifestations, like smoke in the fire, dust on the mirror, and the womb about the embryo. When lust is compared to smoke, it is understood that the fire of the living spark can be a little perceived. In other words, when the living entity exhibits his Krishna consciousness slightly, he may be likened to the fire covered by smoke. Although fire is necessary where there is a smoke, there is no overt manifestation of fire in the early stage. This stage is like the beginning of Krishna consciousness. The dust on the mirror refers to a cleansing process of the mirror of the mind by so many spiritual methods. The best process is to chant the holy names of the Lord. The embryo covered by the womb is an analogy illustrating a helpless position, for the child in the womb is so helpless that he cannot even move. This stage of living condition can be
હલો
compared to that of the
સોરી માં
tree.
તો મ્યુટ થઈ ગયું હલો હમણાં
The trees are also living entities, but
હલો
they have been put in such a condition of life by such a great exhibition of lust that they are almost void of all consciousness. The covered mirror is compared to the birds and beasts, and the smoke covered fire is compared to the human being. In the form of a human being, the living entity may revive a little Krishna consciousness, and if he makes further development, the fire of a spiritual life can be kindled in the human form of life. By careful handling of the smoke in the fire, fire can be made to blaze. Therefore, the human form of life is a chance for the living entity to escape the entanglement of material existence. In the human form of life, one can conquer the enemy lust by cultivation of Krishna consciousness under able guidance. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for reading. Okay. So Prabhupada is explaining in the purport there are 3 degrees of covering of the pure consciousness. So smoke and fire, dust and mirror, and embryo being covered by the moon. Prabhupada is explaining each of these. So first one he's saying that lust is compared to smoke. It is understood that the fire of living spark can be little perceived. So if we see when a smoke is covering the fire, we can still see the fire if the fire is there. Am I right? What do you guys think? When the smoke is covering the fire, then one can still see the fire, right? Through the
Yes.
smoke or behind the smoke. Yeah, if the fire is there, usually one can see. And when the mirror is covered by a thick layer of dust, it becomes a little hard to see the image of the person which is behind that thick layer of dust. And then the third degree is when the womb is when the embryo is covered in the womb. So embryo one cannot see, right? Completely covered. So these are different stages to which the lust covers. Prabhupada is saying when a living entity exhibits slight Krishna consciousness, it is like fire covered by smoke. So even though we have so many unlimited desires which are covering us, lusty, and whole thing is actually keeping us engaged in this material world, still there is a chance that one comes in association or comes in contact with others who may be more spiritually advanced, and in their association one's dormant spiritual consciousness revives. So that is compared to as smoke and fire because it is not as thick of a covering. Prabhupada is saying, although fire is necessary where there is smoke, there is no overt manifestation of fire in the early stage. This stage is like the beginning of the Krishna consciousness. So sometimes when they light the fire also initially, the smoke comes first and then the fire comes. So reviving Krishna consciousness also may be there, where heat is there, or some curiosity is there, but right now one is not completely Krishna consciousness. There's some inclination, there's some understanding which is developing, maybe some interest, some curiosity, some liking has started, but it is not really completely become our first nature or second nature. Then Prabhupada comes about to the second part, second degree, dust covering the mirror. Prabhupada is saying here, cleansing process of the mirror of the mind. The dust on the mirror refers to a cleansing process of the mirror of the mind by so many spiritual methods. Best process is to chant the holy names. So when we chant the holy name, this layer which is covering the mirror or the layer of lust covering our consciousness with unlimited desires, it actually clears. And third is when a child is in the womb and he's helpless, cannot move, cannot be seen. This is very, very thick layer. And Prabhupada is comparing this layer to trees. He's saying this is so much that trees are there whose consciousness, even though they are conscious, but their consciousness is so much covered that it cannot be revived in this lifetime, just like a human consciousness can be revived to Krishna consciousness. So if we were to compare from another perspective, trees are like the womb, animals, birds and beasts are like the mirror covered by dust, and the human beings are like the fire uh, covered by smoke. So these are the 3 degrees to which. So um, the lust is, the covering of the lust is thick and very very difficult to overcome in the case of trees. The consciousness of the animals is a little bit more visible. They are moving around, they are able to display their intelligence, so that is, the consciousness is less covered. And in human life, the consciousness is least covered, but in all three it is covered. So this is how Krishna is telling there are different degrees of this lust, and explaining more about this science to Arjun. In the last line here, Prabhupada is saying, therefore, the human form of life is the chance for a living entity to escape the entanglement of material existence. In the human form of life, one can conquer the enemy, lust, by cultivation of Krishna consciousness under able guidance. Okay, so this is what I can share from the shloka. Anybody else would like to share anything from this? 3.38 is what we did. Any questions, comments, any points? Okay, I think
I
if
think
nobody
it's
has any,
beautiful.
yes, you're sharing something,
I
Moshmi?
just said I think it's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, Bhagavad Gita is so wonderful. And the more we go deeper, the more and more it speaks to us personally and reveals. Otherwise, it becomes very theoretical and may not even be understandable to many people. But it's, there is a saying, right? Open secret. It is open to everyone, but still it's a secret because it reveals personally. The more we are uh, ready to dive deep, the more and more each loka will reveal. All right, we'll end here. Granth Raj Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada